What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Sit Down Saturday. Today we're going to be having this Legends conversation that I kind of just randomly mentioned last week, and then I got kind of really passionate about the answer and the response and all of the things that kind of pull at my heartstrings regarding that conversation. So it was one that I was looking forward to. I actually had to do notes for it. I had to do notes sometimes on the more technical stuff that we talk about, but rarely do I have to do it on opinion stuff. But I wanted to make sure that I got everything out that I wanted to say. Just like that intro. But before we do that, we do have to do a little bit of teeny tiny bit of housekeeping. Last week, Sit Down Saturday on the verses, there's always people that kind of don't have issue with or whatever. But actually on this one, most people were pretty like, hey, you know what? Fair representation. There were people that were like, well, New Age wins on the face sculpt and overall presentation alone. And I don't think you're wrong for that opinion, because I do think that it is the more striking looking piece. And if I were to collect a G1 style collection of Legends, I would go New Age and fill it with Magic Square where it was appropriate. However, if I'm looking at them technically and objectively, I have to admit that I think Magic Square got the best of them. Which is no small feat, because New Age does really impressive stuff. Speaking of other little things, Chatterbox. A lot of interesting responses to this. So there was a number of people that were like, this isn't meant for Masterpiece, it's meant for Siege. And I think if you were to watch the video, you would notice that I think I say that multiple times. Then there was another person who was speaking out of love and was saying how you shouldn't review stuff that you're not interested in. But the thing is I was interested in that. That's the thing. The interesting aspect of that review for me was more of the lesson, not only to myself, but hopefully to other people, of when you get that itch to buy something because it kind of fits and you know it's not right, but you're like, man, what if I look at it like this? Or if I put a picture of my kid behind it? Well, that, you know what I mean? And it never works. So it was more like a cautionary tale. I think it's a good set. It's just not for me. And the review is really about how I wanted something to fit and I was willing to go to lengths to fill it, so to speak, and it still didn't make me happy. I think it was actually a lot more interesting than some thought it was. And then the MMC piece. What's funny is I thought that one was going to get people tearing me limb from limb because MMC has a really strong hive, which is great, and I totally understand why. But most people were kind of supportive of where I was at with it. There were even people that were like, I love this thing, but his criticisms are fair. And that's the biggest compliment, that I could receive in that regard. But if you look through, there's a lot of comments of people just saying, I don't know what this is. I have no, why are they doing this? That's what I want to warn MMC about, is following a trail of people that are spending money on this stuff and are saying, don't make things I don't care about. It's a cautionary tale once again. So something to think about. So let's get on with the show, and we're going to talk about these Legends. And Legends have really become the standard for third party now. It's very rare that you get a bigger release, especially if it's in the G1 pocket. It's almost special now. Whereas before it was the land of milk and honey, Legends have kind of replaced that. Now there's questions and answers that I got for why that is, but one of them is the price point. The price point is easier to consume, so it allows more access from people to get involved. Unfortunately, I can tell you after doing this for 6 years, the cheaper the product, the more bull comes with it from the fan base. And I don't mean that any kind of way, but it's a fact. And I can tell when stuff gets too expensive for me. I'm into this quarter scale stuff a little bit, and a lot of that fan base seems to be very reasonable about their criticisms and complaints, but I'm like, man, I can't have it not be perfect with this price point. That just means I'm playing in waters that maybe are a little too deep for me, if I were to self-analyze. But Legends really have become the bread and butter of third party. If you look at my channel, they're kind of almost the bread and butter of my channel nowadays. But why don't I collect them personally? It comes down to a few things, and one of which is the scale. They're small. And it's not that I don't like small things, so to speak, but I want you to understand that I have spent at least 35 of my 40 years on this planet collecting a small collection. And it is without a doubt the most difficult thing I have ever done in order to get it to display in any real meaningful way. I've gone through a long history of putting these characters on bookshelves. I've put them on CD stands. I've put them in vehicles and tried to do vehicle displays just to make the subject matter that you're looking at a larger subject matter. It's how I got into dioramas. Those original dioramas that I did with Joe are still here in my house, serving a purpose for another small collection that I have that's also equally challenging to display. And that's the G.I. Joe 3 3/4 line, and obviously what I'm talking about generally is my Star Wars 3 3/4 line. The longest running collection I've ever had in my life, but also the most challenging. And those figures I have put in bins, brought back out, put back in bins, brought back out in order to try to get it to look right. And I'm finally at a space where it looks right. And you want to know what I actually have to display them? They're custom made CD stands. They were stands that my father-in-law made, shelves I guess rather, to display my CD collection. And now I have removed all the CDs and placed Star Wars 3 3/4 on them, and they look pretty good on there. But that's the best I could do. Now, I have a couple other ways to display them, which is in mini dioramas. And those dioramas are in coffee tables or terrariums, and they also do a pretty good job of displaying those figures in some sort of meaningful way. And also the fact that it becomes part of like the functionality of the room and the space, you can put your cup on it, whatever, adds to the purpose in regards to the collection. But let me tell you, because of the trials and tribulations that I have had with that collection, I will never get involved with another collection that's of that size. And I see people putting these things in detolfs. God bless you. I don't know what else to say. Now, that's not to say that it couldn't work. It absolutely could work. A Legends display could work. Not in a detolf, but it could work in these CD stands. We've seen on dummies people using the baseball bat trophy kind of cases. That works. A diorama or a terrarium would work well. What Limited Number of Wives Customs did in one of the dummies with the kind of center space of his room being set up for Legends was awesome. What Robert D. and others have done with displaying them kind of specifically with the Masterpiece scale combiners or the City Bots can also work. But the real truth to this collection is that it is a quantity-based collection. It's not a quality-based collection. Now, that's not to say that the figures aren't of high quality. They are, but that's not what the collection is based off of. Any small collection only kind of means more. When I say small, I mean height or size. Only means more with the more you have of them. People that have Pops collections, which are small collectibles, it looks better when you have more of them. But with more comes logistic issues regarding space, and I am running out of space. Now, you can make the argument of, well, why don't you get rid of some of the other stuff and make room for that? Well, because I love more than just one thing. And one of the things that I'm really taking into account now with my collection is making sure that I have a representation of everything I love, even if it is something small. I grew up on Flight of Dragons. It's become like a running joke on Nerd Rage Radio, the podcast that you guys should subscribe to if you're a mature listener, and also leave a review on your favorite downloading or podcast carrying app. It really helps us out. But how much I love Flight of Dragons has become a joke, but I do love it. And there was never collectibles or anything made of it. So what did I do? I got an art print of just Flight of Dragons art, and I put it on my wall. But now it has like its little space. I used to have a giant Warhammer 40K table. I've now reduced it to a terrarium, coffee table, and it works just as well to kind of proclaim my love for this one little thing. But I need to see all of it. My life or my collections or my interests are broader than just Transformers. I have a huge space set up for my Transformers because Transformers mean an awful lot to me. And I also have a secondary space for Transformers here. But that's as far as it's going to get with me. So I don't have the logistical space to handle another collection that's once again based on the amount of space it's going to take up. See, when I added the statues in, they do take up a lot of space, but that space was planned for statues. And I had to have Transformers be a part of it because I love Transformers. But that space, once again, was allocated, and once it was filled, and that's it. So that's really the personal reason. But let me tell you some other reasons about why I won't get involved in this thing from afar, from the outside looking in. If you don't see history repeating itself here, you're not looking close enough. The rabid cannibalism that's going on between New Age and Magic Square, especially if you look at what's going on with their combiners, with their Devastators recently, it reminds me back to the days of Third Party where they were just eating each other in the Masterpiece space, and look what has happened as a result of it. Very few companies are still standing. I refuse to take part in that again. Because even though they scale differently, people are still warring with each other about which is better. Even though they're not quite competing in the same space. Even when I compare their scales, I compare them only to their own scales and who got it closer. There's often people that will say, you know, with the amount of love that Legends are getting now, do you regret going Masterpiece and would have done it all over again? Would you have gone Legends? And the answer is absolutely not. Based on what I talked about in the opening kind of discussion, I'll tell you, if I were to do it all over again, I probably would have gone mainline. Because I know now from my Marvel Legends display that dioramas and display presentation can make meh figures look great. And it's not that I don't love the MPs, I'll always love the MPs. But my concern is not getting the obscure. We're not really getting them in MP, you're not really getting them in Legends either. And I got news for you. Once these two companies cannibalize the out of Season 1 and Season 2 in the movie, we'll see what's left on the bone when the smoke is clear. Now, am I ever tempted by Legends? Of course. But I've never been tempted by Magic Square, and I've never been tempted by New Age. Even with the Minosaurs. So then what am I tempted by? Iron Factory. Why am I tempted by Iron Factory? Because of my love of IDW and how far they took the line. But even with them, they haven't gone to the full potential of the line. And now they've gotten even more obscure with more original designs on their behalf instead of the IDW stuff that kind of got them into space in the first place. So I'm becoming less interested and less tempted by Iron Factory even now. But if I had space for like one more coffee table and I could do like a Swerves bar diorama inside of it and do an Iron Factory IDW kind of Lost Light collection inside of that space, I would have loved to do that. That's like a bucket list thing for me. But just like my IDW collection here, I'm not going to get involved with another one where I'm not going to get the figures that I want. Where's Whirl? Both here, and don't mention that thing. But also in regard to Iron Factory. They haven't done it. And it's even going to be harder to do there because they're so small. Now, do I think that these figures are great? Absolutely. Do I think that these Legend Scale figures are operating at the highest frequency that we've ever seen Legend Scale Transformers ever in the history of ever? Absolutely. But just because something's good doesn't mean that I need to have it. It's just a logistical nightmare. It's a very difficult collection to display. Shout out to those that have done it well. There's not many of you. And that's not your fault. I'm speaking out of sympathy. I'm speaking from my own personal history regarding a small but plentiful collection. It's hard to pull off. But at the very least, get them out of detox. God bless. Anyway, hope you guys are staying safe, staying sane. Things are opening up. It looks beautiful outside. Get outside. Spend time with loved ones, all that kind of stuff. I got more Legends reviews coming this week. It's a fact. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.